been resistance to taking those funds?
There we go.
Sorry, can you hear me, Governor?
Melissa Davlin, are you there?
I am. Hi, Governor Little. I'm curious if you could give us some insight into the conversations you've been having with lawmakers. Has there been...
I know this is everybody's first Zoom call. There you are.
Hi, can you hear me now?
You're muted.
I'm not.
Or maybe I've muted you.
I think you have.
I can see her lips moving. I don't see her
I think
cat.
she has a question. Oh, hi, Hayat has a question.
Hayat, go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry, Melissa, I didn't mean to cut you off. Hi, Governor, thank you so much. I had a question about the House Bill 332 that was just passed in the House.
We're not hearing anyone in the studio either.
Oh, hello, can you hear me? Governor, can you?
Alex, did you have questions?
Are you able to hear me?
Or did they have questions for? Okay. And Director Adams is with me. If you've thought of any more questions, when we get our audio figured out here in the studio.
Yeah, I'll type my question in.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Well, we worked through technical difficulties. There are just a couple things that I was hoping to get to in the pre-briefing. And one of the questions that you might have is about the local government funding and how that compares to what was received under the CARES Act. And we've run the estimates from Treasury for counties, for example. And counties would receive approximately 7.8 times as much under ARPA as they did under the CARES Act. So just as one example, Ada County received $11.8 million under the CARES Act through the state for COVID needs, whereas under ARPA, they'd receive $93.4 million. Counties fared a little bit better than cities. The average city is receiving about 5 to 6 times as much as they did under the CARES Act. The last thing I was just going to mention is I know a number of you have started asking questions about the language in the bill that speaks to tax relief and whether or not that would have any impact on Idaho. And the update I wanted to provide from Treasury, they haven't issued official guidance, but you can find news reports that a Treasury spokesperson has weighed in on that issue. And the Treasury has said that the provision is not meant as a blanket prohibition on tax cuts. States can still make tax modifications. But they cannot use the pandemic reliefs to pay for those cuts. Of course, when the governor announced record tax relief as part of State of State in January, we did not anticipate additional federal funding. We're using both a general fund as well as a tax relief fund to offset what has been proposed at the legislature. So there's been no discussions about using the federal fund. So with that, hoping that the IT issue is resolved.
I have a question from Melissa.
Okay.
And if you will restate it. So
okay, go ahead.
She said, Governor Little, can you give us some insights into your conversations with lawmakers? Is there resistance to accepting the federal funds?
Well, Melissa Davlin's question is about my conversations with legislators, and is there resistance to using the federal funds? I think a little bit, but for the most part, you know, the criteria that we've set out about we're not going to take the federal funds and create ongoing programs that'll leave us obligated in the out years. And we want these to really address the problems that were caused by the pandemic and to do one-time issues. The bill is specific, as Alex alluded, on water, sewer, broadband. We've made great progress in broadband so far. We had a broadband initiative exclusive of all of this. It was working its way through the legislature, and now we're going to get this additional funding. Melissa, from our talks, as long as we stay with those criteria about not creating new programs, I think there's pretty wide acceptance among the bulk of the legislature.
Okay, and I have a mic now, so hopefully they can hear me. This is from Bill Spence. He says, given that these funds apparently can't be used for transportation infrastructure or deferred maintenance, will you be able to find enough long-term investments for this money?
Well, we believe so. But that's one of the reasons that I made the announcement I did, is the money that we have to allocate in the next 60 days, we're going to work through. And we've got a real good period of time to where the executive branch, the legislative branch, the joint committee meets periodically during the interim. Legislative council meets. There might be some other committees, whatever the legislature decides. But we want to work with them to make sure that those standards that we build about not creating a new program and then wisely allocating these resources can be met. We know that cities and counties got a lot of water and sewer needs that need to be met. And we look forward to those investments being made, but we can still wait until next January and then really do a good job allocating those funds. But Bill, to your question, I still want to get a transportation package through, as I've advocated for both last year and this year. And we need a good long-term dedicated transportation funding.
From Kevin Richard, much of the K-12 money and the higher ed money too, I believe, is geared toward reopening for face-to-face learning. Idaho K-12 schools and campuses are largely open. Do you think you will have the latitude to spend more of Idaho's share of education dollars to address learning loss in K-12 and remediation in higher ed?
Well, Kevin Richards' question is about the strings on K-12 funding, and that the intent of the bill was to go to these states where they aren't in person and they haven't been back in school. As we all know in Idaho, that's not the case in Idaho. I'll let Alex finish up on it, but there's a significant amount of leeway in the K-12 funds, as I understand the ARPA bill right now. Alex?
Thank you, Governor. So, Kevin, the restrictions on the use of these funds are similar to previous rounds of ESSER funding, where they're pretty flexible in terms of the restrictions that are on the use of these federal funds. There's fewer strings than you usually see on federal funds. One of the allowable categories, as I understand it, under ESSER 3 is still the ability to use these for maintaining operations, which gives schools quite a bit of latitude to offset existing costs. And you guys know that our priority this legislative session was on learning loss. We're thrilled that the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee has advanced Governor Little's recommendation to enhance summer school programs and other programs that would help specifically with literacy in K-4, as well as in some of the older grades. And I think there's a stable of resources here that could double those efforts and build off of the successful efforts that Governor pushed for earlier this session.
Thanks, Alex.
And Betsy Russell with the Idaho Press asks, Governor, is HB 332 the tax cut bill you support, or are you supporting something different?
Betsy Russell's questions about the House tax bill that I believe is over in the Senate, and we're still looking at the bill. As you all know, I proposed both ongoing and one-time tax relief in my state of the state. That's still my position. I know that the Senate has got that bill. They're going to deliberate on that bill, and I, as usually, I don't make a commitment on it, but I have taken a firm position on one-time and ongoing tax relief, but with the full understanding that we not be getting over our skis, and that the budget be balanced at the end of it, that we're not betting on particularly the high rate of revenue that we've had, which we know is abnormal. You all know that there's a bill today to change the filing deadline for taxes. it is really hard to normalize our revenue stream. And we want to make sure that we're not creating a problem for ourselves in the outcome, but we want to offer both one-time and ongoing tax relief.
Hayat has a similar question. Are you concerned HB 332 would impact roughly $400 million in holdbacks? Does Governor Little have a statement on that bill, and would you consider a veto?
Oh, well, I'm not going to make a commitment on the House tax bill. As I said, I know it's through one half of the legislative body, and the other half's going to look at it, and we will continue to look at it. As you well know, it came pretty fast, and I haven't had a chance to do a deep dive into it. But my fundamentals are that we have one-time tax relief that's one-time, ongoing that's ongoing, and that we have a fundamentally balanced budget in the out years.
Bill asks, will legislative approval be needed to appropriate any or all of these ARPA funds? What about the money that goes to the 191 cities?
Well, we have to get that money out in 30 days. 30 days from receipt. But it is pretty, and as Alex just alluded to just a minute ago, before we were on the hook, the state was on the hook if we weren't in compliance with Treasury guidance. Some of these funds the cities are going to be accountable for it, but we have to set in a process by which to put that out. And I've been in meetings with legislators and with Alex, and I think we're supposed to have a plan in a day or so.
James Dawson says, piggybacking off Bill's question, will there be another CFAC type interim committee to make any immediate allocation decisions for these funds?
Well, the question, James Dawson's question is about, will we have, and Alex alluded to what we did with CFAC under a much more narrow time frame before. We've got a lot more leeway. We fully expect the legislature to be involved, whether officially with the Joint Finance Committee or whether with another high-level group of members of both bodies. And then, of course, given the fact that we're not going to do any of the appropriation for the bulk of the money until next January, we expect to see the germane committees give guidance to the Joint Committee on how to appropriate them. And my budget shop, Alex, will work with them to get that done.
Keith Riddler with the AP asks, where would you say Idaho is in its fight against COVID-19 now with 3 relief packages, 175,000 infections, 1,900 dead, 200,000 with 2 shots of the vaccine, and 125,000 with 1 shot?
Well, Keith Riddler's question is basically, where are we given the enormity of the COVID impacts on the state? I will tell you, I get these numbers every morning that 25 of 44 counties today have an incident rate of less than 10. And if you would have told me a month and a half ago we would have been there, I would have been surprised. We only have 4 counties today that are over an incidence of 25. We've got a little issue over in one part of the state right now, which has been creeping up. But given the deployment of the vaccine, given our hospital capacity, and the hospital capacity got a little stretched in the last few days, but not at all critical like we had before, we're in much better shape. And of course, every day as we administer doses of vaccine, and the most important part of it is we're administering those doses to our to the most targeted audiences, long-term care, older people, people on the front lines. We fully expect by the end of April, the vaccines will be available to everyone to, at a minimum, be scheduled.
Okay, Governor, this is from Jimmy Dawson as well. Considering that 4 House members have been diagnosed with COVID-19 in the past week, are you concerned that the legislature will be able to finish its obligations?
Well, James Dawson asked a question about given the incident rate that's taken place with some of the legislators, am I concerned? Well, first off, I'm concerned for anybody that gets exposed to the virus. And as we all know, we know people that have had the virus, it's been asymptomatic. There wasn't of a major consequence other than they were spreading it to other people. But then there are also people who've had very significant health consequences, and we don't know what's going to happen long term. We're very concerned about the variants, but I heard the speaker on the floor just this last week urge the members to be cautious, to watch their hygiene, to do the right thing. And I'm hopeful that we can get through the legislature without any more legislators being afflicted.
Bill says, I understand your hesitation about rejecting this federal funding, but does Idaho really need this money?
Well, I guess I would argue Bill Spence's question about does Idaho really need the money? Given the criteria that we can do long-term investments in water, sewer, broadband in particular, those are places where we can absolutely allocate them. And as Alex just alluded to, and we had already proposed prior to the ARPA, to this piece of legislation, we'd already proposed an investment in Idaho to help these kids get caught up mainly on literacy. Now with the newfound money into K-12, we can really kind of turn up the volume on getting these kids caught back up. We're going to have some real challenges there. And I look forward to the state board, the Department of Education, working with professional educators all along the state to take these resources and get these kids caught back so that, a year from today, I would like to say that for the most part, everybody's caught back up, but it's going to take some resources. So we're thankful for those resources. I would have preferred the project, the whole funding of the ARPA bill be of a smaller degree. But, our taxpayers, our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay this debt off. And we already, one of the things that was left out was in the last year, we got one of the smallest percent of all the funding when you add it all up of any of the states because of our unemployment rate, because of the fact businesses were open. Even prior to this bill, we were one of the states with the least per capita, per economy contribution in Idaho. And I understand that. I understand that, if you have high unemployment, you're going to get more employment dollars. But just think about the message that it sends, that if you reward bad behavior, you're going to reward bad behavior and you're going to disincentivize good behavior. I just worry about the message it sends to citizens and to leaders in the future about not being responsible as we have been here in Idaho.
All right, question from Jack Schimmel. He says, following up on Keith's question, Idaho Falls and Rexburg are among the biggest COVID-19 hotspots in the nation, which is what I believe the governor was referring to as an answer. What conversations have you had about what's next for those areas?
Well, the question is about basically my top 4 counties today are Bonneville, Madison, Jefferson, and Bingham. We are one of the things we didn't have. One of the things we have implemented in Idaho, we can now do DNA sequencing right here in Idaho, where we can determine if it's one of the new variants, which you hear a lot about. And so we're sending a lot of samples from the testings being gathered in those areas into the lab to see if there's something we need to know. We know that there's a significant variant just across the line in Wyoming and Jackson Hole, and I've been concerned about that. I made some calls or was privy to some calls with the epidemiologist over in that part of the state if there's any one point of spread, and it was generally what you would think. It was family events, it was work, it was there was not a one specific super spreader event that was over there. And so what my experience is and what we've learned is usually when the case counts get up, people get more concerned and start to be more careful. And I hope and pray that's the case over there.
Bill says it's off topic, but do you have any concerns about SB 1110, the initiative restriction bill?
Bill Spence asked an off-topic question about SB 1110. And yes, it's off topic, but you know, we're looking at it. You know what my position was on the last bill. You know what my veto message said, and we'll see what happens when it gets up here.
And Betsy has a question. Governor, you haven't vetoed any bills yet. Are you getting that red stamp ready for any particular legislation?
Well, Betsy Russell wanted to know about vetoes, and I didn't ask Alex for a supplemental for red ink.
That was the last one.
All right. Thank you all very much.